Claire Clutterham, member for Sturt, first time in 52 years that the Labor Party has won that seat. Congratulations, Claire, MP for Sturt. Thank you for coming into Radio Italia Uno.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me this afternoon.
Yes, and we spoke to you during the campaign. That was very instructive. We heard something about your background and your husband's contribution to your political career. We won't go into that.
Yeah.
So, I guess the main reason I invite you to come back to is part of having an ongoing conversation is seeing what's it like. What's the life of a new MP like? You've been to Canberra already once or twice, is that correct?
That's right. So the election was the 3rd of May, and I think it was by the 6th I was on a plane to Canberra, and the purpose of that trip was to meet my new parliamentary colleagues, so ones that were re-elected, some for a 7th time, 8th time, which is quite remarkable, and then to meet the new members of the House of Representatives and the Senate. So that was a couple of days to do that activity, and it was great. It was a great vibe in Parliament House. Everyone was pretty excited about the election result.
I can imagine there were several things that were very unusual in the result. And by the way, I'll mention that we're going live on Facebook.
Yes.
Live,
okay, yeah.
I
can see that, yeah.
Radio Italia Uno and on my Instagram feed. So it was the first time, I think, that the government was re-elected with an increased majority, and there were at least a few seats that changed to Labor that were maybe considered a bit outstanding. One of them was the seat that Peter Dutton had previously held. I know of yours, the seat for Sturt hadn't been in Labor hands for a long time. So I guess that was a major part of the celebrations when you were in Canberra?
Certainly. There were, a number of new MPs, as I said, and some ran in seats that hadn't been in Labor hands for many years, and some ran in seats that the Labor Party didn't expect to win. And to win them, those unexpected seats as well as the ones that we hadn't held for a long time was hugely exciting. And to be there, I think there was, we've got 94 seats in the House,
yes.
Plus the Senate. It was a very full room, so very joyous celebration.
Yeah, now we had a conversation with Tony Zapia last week, so Parliament hasn't sat yet.
No.
So this was an unofficial meeting?
Yeah, this was a meeting to, it was very much an introductory meeting to meet the new colleagues, get a little bit of a sense of Parliament House, which is huge. I think 250 square metres or something like that, so 250,000 square metres. It's a very big building with lots of different wings. So you've got the green bit for the House, the maroon or burgundy bit for the Senate, and then the blue section is the ministerial wing, and then there's lots of other areas that are open to the public to come in and have a look.
And there's a few Italian collections in the building, which we might discuss in a minute. So is there a training or induction for new members, even just knowing how to get around the building? Must be daunting.
Yeah, indeed. I was using the artwork as a guide, so there's this beautiful picture of whatever, and this is how I know where I am. But I'm told that the artwork changes all the time, and not to actually use it as my, as my map. But no, I had an induction this week for a couple of days, and it's again it was a bit of a get to know you, but also starting to get into things like how you set up your office, because some people had only very recently been declared, and some hadn't even gotten the keys to their office yet. So there's a lot of information about that, and then it was a chance to sort of ask questions about processes and there's lots of parliamentary processes that you need to get across, which is why we'll actually be going back in 10 days' time for a much more detailed induction where, the people have got a rough idea, but, what does a day look like when you're sitting in Parliament? What do you need to do? Where do you need to be? What do you do when the bells ring? All of those things will be covered at that time.
How long do they rent? Was it 2 or 3 minutes?
I don't know. I'm told that the farthest distance that someone might have to run is 4 minutes. So,
okay, so it must be more than 3.
Yeah, I think it's a sneakers joint, not a high heels joint.
I think it might be 3 minutes in the State Parliament. Yeah, okay, so you've gone in. And what happens in the caucus meeting? Because that's not part of the official job. I guess it's part of the job, but it's organised by the Labor Party rather than the Parliament.
Yeah, that's right. So that's where members of the House and the Senate gather to discuss and debate issues, and that's all I can really say. I haven't had one yet, and haven't had a formal one yet. But also, what happens in that room stays in that room. It's a chance to have full and frank discussions with your colleagues, which is really important, and raise issues that are important to your constituency in an environment where you can sort of be confident that you can have those discussions.
Yeah, so, and that, I guess, means that in the meeting you had, that wasn't a policy.
It was a welcome, very much a welcome.
That's cool. And we've had a bit of a chat with Tony Zappi about the campaign and his interpretation of what did or didn't happen. Actually, just I think on the last day, second to last day of the campaign, Peter Dutton was in the seat of Macon.
Okay.
That seat, very, very safe. So who knows what decision making was happening back then. But what reflections do you have on the campaign, thank you, as regards specifically Sturt?
Yeah. So my campaign was 11 months. And, on many occasions through that 11 months, I just thought, oh gosh, this is, it's completely exhausting, and we wish we hadn't started so early. I really need a break. That was going through my mind. But I think using that 11 months to really get to know community groups, get to know a lot of constituents, and get my name and profile out there was actually really important. And then, of course, in the last, a 5-week or 33-day election campaign, it really ramped up, because it wasn't just about Sturt, it was about sort of, the offering and the messaging that the Albanese Labor government was offering to the Australian public, which thankfully was well received on the election day, which has resulted in, us being returned to government with an increased majority, as you point out.
Yes. And it was quite a major result in Sturt. What do you think resonated most, or was important most in Sturt?
So from a policy perspective, one that continually came up when I was door knocking or doing a shopping centre visit or what have you, was Labor's focus on education. So fee-free TAFE. In critical industries, there were sort of real stories and lived experience of people who are residents of Sturt who have been able to take advantage of that policy. That was a big one, and then of course the 20% being wiped off of HECS their apprenticeships. That resonated very strongly with the people of Sturt. And the second one was the healthcare sort of package. But in particular, people talk about Medicare, and that of course was important, but the $587 million investment in women's health resonated very strongly with not only the women of Sturt, but the men of Sturt, with everyone. It's a household budget issue, it's a productivity issue. If women are happy and healthy and contributing to the economy and their families, and that all the better for the community.
And interestingly, earlier in the program we had someone talking about aged care and aged care reform, and both of these areas, health and aged care, come under the portfolio of Mark Butler.
They do, indeed, yes.
Huge job that he's got.
He's very well suited to those portfolios. I spent a lot of time with Mark during the campaign, and he is passionate about health for Australians. He's interested, he's got an inquiring mind. I can't think of a better person to be running that portfolio.
We've been talking a little bit about your part of the induction, of what you've had so far, and there's more coming up. A little bit about the campaign in Sturt. I'll get to a couple of personal things in a minute. Now, did you get an impression for the national level campaign, and what made a difference?
Yeah, I think what made the difference was clear and consistent messaging. Anthony Albanese was absolutely chock-a-block full of energy. He was just sparkling throughout the campaign. He knew, what he wanted to present to the Australian public, and he presented it over and over and over again. Just, what you need to do when you've got a plan and a direction and you want people to follow. I think it was that clear and consistent messaging, as well as, you've got to have good policies to message, right? So he had good policies, cost of living at forefront of mind, health and education, jobs. These are core Labor values that he was able to prosecute with, a lot of energy and connect with a lot of voters.
Yes, and I'd seen over time maybe people disaffected about specific elements not going as they wanted, specific policies. But I'd interviewed Anthony Albanese prior to entering government, and I remember seeing a lot of depth behind him, and he was actually producing analysis rather than slogans when we were talking. And I was fairly confident that could come through, despite any negative campaigns I might have come across.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the other thing is Anthony Albanese, he's a master campaigner. He loves campaigning, and he campaigns in a way that sort of brings you along on his message. So he really believes in the policies that he takes to the people of Australia. And when you believe in something and you're being your true and authentic self, that comes through. And that certainly came through to the Australian people on the 3rd of May.
Yes, indeed. Now I said we can maybe talk about some personal elements. When we were having a conversation during their campaign, somewhere along the line you said that your husband somehow contributed to you entering politics, and you said maybe in not such a polite term as I'm expressing now. So I'm wondering what that conversation might have been.
Well, I can't repeat what he said, of course, but no, we're a politically engaged household, so always, talking about the issues of the day, what's happening around the world, interested in the world around us. And it was, it must have been 2021 maybe, 2020, just sort of, the pandemic, and I was talking about that and, how it was being managed and all these issues, and I always had a view on something, and he said, look, if you're so interested and passionate about it, why don't you get involved? I think he was sick of me being on my soapbox every night talking about things, and, I thought, Ben, you're right, so let's go and see what we can do about it. So, and I've been volunteering for Labor for a while, and I was always interested in sort of government and how decisions are made. So I wanted to sort of take the first baby step, and that was to run for local council. So I ran a little campaign, just door knocked and letterboxed the St. Peter's ward, which is much, much smaller than Sturt.
Yes.
And, managed to get myself elected and get a seat at that table, at that level of government, and then sort of continue to, network and volunteer for Labor, and then, got the opportunity. So I think the message, the message that the feedback I took away from Ben is like, if you want to make change, you've got to have a seat at the table. And it doesn't always work out. People try, and it doesn't always work out. But, having a go and putting your hand up, I think is really important. And I'm glad I did.
Okay, local council, then politics. That's a similar story to Tony Zappia, who'd been mayor for a long time, and Louise Miller-Frost also went through local government.
I think it's a well-worn path, and in fact in South Australia the Local Government Act contemplates it. So it actually has a section in there about councillors running for federal or state parliament. Okay. So it's a pathway.
Now, does it mean, do you have to resign the post?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I took advice, and the advice was the Local Government Act requires that the position be vacated if a councillor is elected to federal or state parliament, which is different from other states. In some states, members of parliament can continue to do that work, but not in South Australia.
Yeah, and to some extent that distinguishes the way local government is run in South Australia. There's much less party political
Absolutely, it's
content.
apolitical. So when I ran for council in 2022, I declared my membership of the Labor Party, which I was required to do. But, you know, there's no Labor, Liberal, Greens on council. So I think, you know, to be an elected member of the federal parliament as a member of the Labor Party and be on council doesn't really align with that apolitical philosophy that we have here in South Australia, which is why the Local Government Act says what it says.
Yeah. And another part of the personal life, we mentioned also in our previous conversation, you mentioned that you would do some work with Anonymous Cucina.
Yeah, Anonymous Cucina. Yeah. So that was a great story. I can't remember if I told you I met the head chef in the street one day. I was just doing some door knocking and there was a guy and he was coming back from a fishing trip and got to chatting and he had a Nonna's van and it was Steph and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And they were in the process of moving to their new premises of Holden Hill, which is in Sturt, and we struck up a relationship. Went there to the opening, got involved in volunteering, and then was able to secure an election commitment for Nonna's $95,000 for them to just finish off that move to the new premises. And during the campaign, we had Albo there, you know, making some lunches and putting vegetable slice into plastic containers. So and Rosa said he did a very good job, and he could be an apprentice one day.
Indeed. So and that move is eventuated. They may be making some other changes, and I know there's an important anniversary this year. I think it's 50 years.
Yeah.
But I hope to have a chat with them about this and where they're going.
Yeah, get Marco and Dario come on the program, and the new president, Michael just chatting about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I also know you have some other credits to go to, so we'll let you go in a minute. And you were wanting to talk about.
Yeah. Thank you. So tonight at the Adelaide Oval, there is a dinner. There's going to be 650 people in attendance.
Wow. Tonight.
It's for an excellent cause. So it's run by an organisation called Breakthrough. And I also met the founder, James Threadgold, one day, you know, in the street, as I met so many people just in the street as part of the campaign. And James told me about his foundation, and it's definitely worth supporting. So tonight is men's health, is a men's health focus, and designed to raise awareness of health issues that men face, but particularly in the mental health sphere. So we know that suicide is a problematic and tragic cause of death for men in this country, and the more awareness we have of the risks and what we can do to mitigate them, the better. So it's a great cause. Really looking forward to the dinner with 649 other people who share that passion for men's health.
Excellent. I think you have a great voice for radio. Now, I know you've got a background in law, commercial law.
Yeah.
Right? And have you thought yet of any areas you might want to focus on?
Yes, in my role as MP. So I am refining my thoughts, Anthony. There are so many areas. Yes. There are so many. And I think, you know, the risk is you try and do it all and then you don't do it well, you know, jack of all trades, master of none. So I think I would like to focus on an issue at a national level. And for me that would be, you know, defence. So our defence industry, that's my recent professional background. I think it's an amazing industry for the South Australian economy, but it's not only for that, it's important for our national security, etc. And then I'm also interested in what can be done about bullying and harassment in schools and what that means for children when they grow up later in life, with, again, a particular focus on domestic violence. So what can we do in schools? What is happening from a bullying and harassment, you know, perspective that possibly is leading to some of the issues we have in our community? So I guess what you could call it is I'm interested in defence of the nation and defence of, you know, children and women. But, you know, these are huge issues, and any small change I could make, you know, towards improving them.
And developing the culture of domestic relations
Yeah.
is important, and long term.
Yeah, I mean, these are very long-term goals, yes.
And I keep on meaning to reach out to Natasha Scott this spy about her Royal Commission, but we'll do, you just reminded me.
Okay.
Cool, okay, well thank you very much. I know you have to rush off, and hopefully we'll have more conversations like this.
Oh, I'd love to. Thanks so much. Thanks to your listeners, and definitely love to come back. Thank you.